Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend the IDEA Regional Entrepreneurship Development Program pre-application webinar. My name is Ming Lei. I'm the Director for Research Capacity Building Division that houses this program. And if you go to the next slide, please. We have a very straightforward agenda today. We'll have Dorit Zook, our Deputy Director, to welcome you to join us. Then after that, we have Baruch Davini, who is the Program Director for this Funding Opportunity Announcement, and Christy Lee, who manages our grants, to introduce the program to you. And this presentations take about half hour. Then we'll reserve a whole hour to answer your questions. So in addition to Baruch and Christy, Krishan Arora and I will join them to help address your questions. And with that, I'll turn to you, Dorit.
Thanks, Ming. I'm happy to see that we just hit 50 participants, so I'm glad to see that people are joining in. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar about the IDEA Regional Entrepreneurship Development, which I will now call IRED program. I'm really excited about the prospects of this STTR program in IDEA states, and I'm looking forward to the development of a robust group of educational products that can promote biomedical entrepreneurship. These products will strengthen technology transfer programs in institutions in IDEA states and support technology innovation in all the IDEA state regions to ultimately lead to improved human health and promote economic growth in the regions. Today, we will provide you with information about the program and give you a clear picture of its goals and characteristics. I hope you will consider applying to this opportunity. Just a housekeeping note, as David put in the chat, this webinar is being recorded, so please take that into account. And Baruch Davini, the IRED Program Director, will take it from here. And so over to you, Baruch.
Thank you, Dorit, for the introduction. Before I move forward with the slides, a couple of additional housekeeping notes. First of all, please enter your questions when we are moving forward through the slides in the chat box, and we are going to answer your question in the chat box. And we will be muting all because of it causes feedback, so it's preferred that you enter your questions in the chat box. Also, I wanted to mention that before you ask, the slides and the webinar will be posted on the webpage, IRED webpage, in a couple of days. But prior to that, if you need the slides, please send me an email. You can find my email address at the end of this slides, and I will send you a PDF copy of the slides. Next slide, please. Also, I wanted to add you that the purpose of this webinar and the slides that we are presenting is also giving an overview of the funding opportunity, RFA GM 22001. They are not meant to be comprehensive and not covering all the required components of the application. Applicants are responsible for following the instructions that are detailed in the FOA and any related notices in the FOA that normally you find the first page of the FOA. There are several notices linked to this FOA, and we encourage all potential applicants to read carefully through the FOA and related notices. Next slide, please. First, let's start with then giving an overview about the IDEA program, IDEA states, and IDEA regions. Throughout the FOA, we are using the IDEA programs and IDEA states. What do we mean by IDEA programs? So these are the programs, the congressionally mandated program that builds research capacity in states that historically have had low levels of NIH funding. The purpose supports capacity building and institutional research infrastructure enhancement. It supports basic clinical and translational research. Currently, there are 23 states 24 jurisdictions, 23 states and Puerto Rico, part of the IDEA states. These states are grouped in 4 regions: Central, Northeast, Southeast, and West, as you can see in the map. If you are not familiar with the IDEA program, there is a link at the bottom of this slide that you can see and read more about the IDEA programs and what are the programs that we are currently supporting through IDEA program. There are COBRE, IMBRE, for example, CTR and other mechanisms. The link is there and you can find more information about the IDEA states there. As I mentioned, these states receive less funding from NIH, and this is true for SBIR and STTR applications. There are fewer SBIR and STTR applications submitted from investigators in this state, and as a result, there are few awards made to SBIR. Next slide. There have been multiple methods to identify what are the barriers and what are the problems, and that there are fewer applications. And through different workshops and analysis and working with the investigators at IDEA states, several factors have been identified. For example, lack of limited knowledge about the SBIR program and limited resources to submit a competitive application or submit in response to SBIR NIH program. So in response to that, NIGMS started initiative in 2018, and 4 regional technology transfer accelerator hubs were funded in 2018. You can find again the list of these hubs in the link below. What are the 4 hubs that are active now? And since 2018, so they conducted gap analysis at academic partner institution in each of the regions that you mentioned. They developed and delivered entrepreneurship training and educational materials. Based off the gap analysis that they have done, it was focused and tailored for faculty, postdoctoral fellows, graduates, and undergraduate students in the IDEA regions. The accelerator hubs supported the establishment of technology transport offices in many academic institutions and developed technology transfer networks. Furthermore, they supported pilot projects to support investigators that had ideas for the startup or preparing the SBIR application. Next slide, please. So, through this new initiative, IDEA Regional Entrepreneurship Development Award, so IRED, NIH continues the NIH efforts to strengthen entrepreneurship in IDEA states. It supports eligible small business concepts to develop educational products to promote biomedical entrepreneurship that can be utilized by academic institutions, especially those in IDEA states, to inspire, train, support their students and faculty to explore entrepreneurship opportunities. The products that may be developed under this program may be didactic or interactive forms of courses, in person, virtual, or recorded, manuals, casebooks, databases, or other forms. The products are expected to develop or enhance academic scientists' entrepreneurship knowledge and skills such as patent filing, business plan development, capital raising, bookkeeping, financial management, business operation in general, and marketing. Also, the purpose is to develop and strengthen technology transfer programs at the academic institution, and in general, stimulate technology innovation and translate technologies, materials, and services for academic research into commercial products at the end, as an end result, to promote economic growth and promote the human public health. Next slide, please. The products are expected to be developed through a rigorous process. And we expect that the product should be developed through a product design, prototype testing, and product validation. So the end outcome is a product development that is designed, tested, and validated. And in the next couple of slides, I'm going to walk you through what we mean by all these steps that are highlighted in this slide. Next slide, please. Of course, we expect that this product should be a novel product that meet the needs of the IDEA regions itself. We don't expect a duplication. The existing resources can be used, but it should meet the specific needs of the region based off the gap analysis that has been done to identify the needs of each region. So the IDEA program is expected to assemble a team that is capable of developing design based on appropriate methodologies, building prototypes, and testing and assessing and adjusting process to refine the prototypes. And when thinking about designing the progress, it always has to be considered that the product has a commercialization potential. So it should be commercialized at the end of the program. So starting with product design, the next step is, next slide, please, is prototype testing through conducting training at the academic institution. So this must be tested at academic institution in the IDEA region that the program serves, and the program should assemble a testing team with appropriate expertise to conduct entrepreneurship training of students and faculty. And of course, they have to develop methods and metrics to assess the effectiveness of the prototypes and, if necessary, refine it. And expected also to leverage the institution in technology transfer network for the testing efforts, because as we mentioned earlier, there are existing accelerator hub and existing network. So the program should utilize and leverage those resources are already available in the region. Next slide, please. And the next step, the third step, is product validation through supporting a pilot project program. Each IRED program must support the pilot project that develop the process and the criteria to identify a group of investigators, a cohort of investigators from institution in the technology transfer network. And for this, the IRED program must assemble a team, validation team, to provide entrepreneurship training of the cohort of academic investigators that are supported by pilot projects. And expected that the program developed methods, metrics, and milestones to assess the entrepreneurship growth through the performance of pilot projects. And also is expected in the beginning to develop the pilot projects, review criteria, how they are going to be solicited the pilot projects, how they are going to review, and how they are going to award them. The scientific merit and commercial potential of selected pilot projects must be reviewed by external advisory committee and approved by a steering committee, which I cover in the next slide, before submission to NIH and NIGMS for final approval. So again, just to summarize these 3 steps, so this is the end product. The end outcome is a product that should be designed, tested, and validated. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights the governance and operation of the IRED program. There are 3 governing bodies for IRED program: administrative committee, a steering committee, and external advisory committee. The administrative committee is responsible for managing the day-to-day activities of the IRED program and make sure that the award is moving forward in accordance with NIH policies. And the contact PI serves as the chairperson of the administrative committee. The IRED program should have a steering committee that provides scientific and administrative oversight of the program. And the composition is the contact PI, a cooperative officer of the small business, a member of institutional leadership from the academic partner, and a representative from each state in the IDEA region, and the NIH project coordinator. I will tell you about the project coordinator of NIH, but this is the expected composition of the steering committee. Again, here the contact PI of the award serve as the chairperson of the steering committee. The third body is external advisory committee that provides consultation and advice to the steering committee. The member of external advisory committee should be individuals with appropriate expertise and experience in the development of educational products and entrepreneurship knowledge. The members are selected by the PIs in consultation with the steering committee. And one point to mention that the external advisory committee members should not be named in the application. You should describe the process and the criteria for selection of them and which criteria you have in mind to select them, but you should not name them in the application. And the reason is that actually then they will exclude them to be part of the review criteria, maybe, the review panel when we are going to review this application. So please don't name any of the potential external advisory committees in your application. Next slide, please. So in this slide, I will touching in general about the PDs, PIs, and partners of the ID program and eligibility of them. So first of all, the small business concern that is submit this application must be from one of the 4 IDEA regions and partner with one academic institution in the same IDEA region. So if an application, for example, is coming from the central region, from a small business central region, the partner institution should be an academic institution in the region, not the same state, but the same region. This is an important part of the application. The academic partner must be an institution with robust biomedical research program and established technology transfer office. They have already been have an academic technology transfer office. And of course, the PD and PIs must have experience in technology transfer and commercialization and experience in developing and marketing entrepreneurship educational products. Under this program, multiple PIs are allowed, so the applicant can have multiple PI when they submit, but the expectation is that all PIs, either they are contact or not contact, have the right expertise and training to lead the program. Next slide, please. Just the mechanism that they are using is this STTR cooperative agreement, UT2 fast track. And the cooperative agreement, it is the mechanism that we use at NIH for supporting and supporting research. And it means that there is substantial involvement of the NIH in the program, not that NIH control the direction of the research, but this is we want to make sure the NIH people provide oversight and coordination and facilitation of the progress. And working jointly with the awardees, NIH staff act as a partners to support and stimulate the research. So in the past, I mentioned that there is a program coordinator, and this is different from your program officer that managing and working with the awardees for managing the day-to-day activities of the award. But the project coordinator or program coordinator has a different role under cooperative agreement. This is a fast track mechanism. They have phase 1 and phase 2. And the fast track mechanism requires that milestone of the phase 1 must be completed before phase 2 funding release. And just now when I mentioned fast track, that this is by fast track, we mean that both components of the application, phase 1 and phase 2, should be submitted together when you submit your application. Next slide, please. And this slide, this is not comprehensive, just this is some of the milestones that expected are completed and achieved under each phase. The complete list is in the FOA, but of course in the phase 1, that could be maximum 1 year, is expected that the IDEA program has established their administrative committee, a steering committee, and external advisory committee. They have completed the research and need analysis to set product goals, and they have completed product design and developing the prototypes and the process that needs to be tested and validated, and of course developing the pilot projects and funding and establishing the review criteria and how it can be solicit the pilot projects. For the phase 2, of course, this is continuous the process of product development, funding the pilot projects, and through the funding pilot projects is training the investigators, mentoring them, what they need, and at the end, help them to submit a competitive SBIR application, and even making sure that they are ready to go to the next step, even like bringing their products to the market. So during the phase 2 is also important to have developed the commercialization plan. It's not expected that you finalize commercialization at the end of phase 2, but at least should be the process there to establish and with clear goals and milestones for the commercialization plan. Again, all the milestones for phase 2 and phase 1 and phase 2 are outlined in the FOA. The next slide, please. Here are the required components of the IRED application. Nuts and bolts of that, a specific item is the one page that you describe the how you are going to, what are the goals for this, your application. This is a one page that, and this is the most important maybe part of your application because the most reviewers are reading that carefully. So make sure that you describe it in a clear and concise way to the reviewers understand what are your plans. Research strategy, you have 12 pages in your position to describe how you are going achieving the aims, starting with overview program or the describe of program organization, how will be operate, and the list of key personnel, and also detailing the product development, as I mentioned, design, testing, and validation, pilot project, and evaluation. So make sure that your evaluation metrics are tied to the goals of the program. So these should be connected. A commercialization plan should be included in each application, which is also 12 pages, and your plan, path, efforts, timeline, and milestone towards reaching the commercialization goals should be described under this section of the application. Letters of support. Expectation is that each application has a strong letter of support from partner institution, also from the local and regional, other regional resources. However, no letter of support is required from other academic institutions in the region at the time of application submission. So please do not include any other letter of support from other institutions that may be involved when we are moving forward in the award during the phase 1 and phase 2. Those institutions should be included later. Although you can include in the application, maybe the potential, what are the resources, what are the networks, what are the communication plan for you to reach out to those institutions, but don't include any letter of support from those institutions. And resource sharing plan, there is a form in the FOA form, I think 424, and you can describe the rationale for sharing or not sharing the products and process that is developed here. So this is specific for the SBIR application, STTR application, and you can find the instruction in the form that is, there is a hyperlink in the application, in the FOA. Next slide, please. Just some important key dates. The most important is application due date is January 5th, 2022. It's less than around 2 months, and consider this is a firm date, and this is directly straight after the holidays. Make sure that you start early, because you don't want to run the technical problems that the university is closed, or from late December to early January, there are always somebody is on vacation, is not available. So make sure that you start early and submit early. The letter of intent is December 5th. Is not required, but we encourage you to submit. So it helps us to organize the review panel. The review would be in March next year. Advisory council is in May, and the funding recommendation will be determined, but after May. And the earliest start day is July 2020. You may start a bit later, but the earliest start day is July 2020. Again, the link to the FOA is here. We encourage you to read carefully. I mean, just study the FOA, not only read it and not only go over that, but read it carefully. And from now until submission, if you have any question, please let us know. Next slide, please. And by that, I complete the first part of this presentation about the FOA, and I turn it over to Christy Leek. Please, Christy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christy Leek. I'm the Grants Management Team Leader for the grants team here at NIGMS that will be managing the STTR hubs, or the IRED program. So I have a couple slides to help you guys prepare, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Next slide, please. So this slide's pretty important. As Behrooz was mentioning, you want to make sure you have everything together well in advance of your application date. These are all of the registrations that the small business concern will need to have prior to submitting your application. So please make sure that you double check, triple check that all of these are correct. Many of these take a few days. Some of these take a few weeks to get set up, these registrations. So please just double check that you have them. Next slide, please. So as Behrooz also mentioned, only small business concerns, which we call SBCs, from IDEA states are eligible to submit applications for this funding opportunity announcement. Your SBC must qualify as a small business concern as defined by the SBA regulations. Please double check those and make sure that you are eligible to submit for this opportunity. Additionally, there are some eligibility criteria as outlined in the FOA. Some of the high points are that small business concerns that are more than 50% owned by venture capitalist operating companies, hedge funds, private equity firms, or any of those combinations are not eligible to apply for the NIH STTR program. Additionally, the PDPI may be employed with the SBC or the partnering research institution, as long as he or she has a formal appointment with or a commitment to the SBC. So that's a kind of interesting point for the eligibility. Additionally, for this FOA, multi-PDPI arrangements are allowed. Next slide, please. This is some information that's specific to the NIH contractual consortium arrangements for this type of program. And so in your phase 1 and phase 2, at least 40% of the research must be performed by the SBC, and at least 30% must be performed by the single partnering research institution. The remaining amount can be attributed either to the SBC, the research institution, or any additional third-party organizations. And part of the FOA is that contractual arrangements or an MOU should be established between the SBC and the partnering institutions during your phase 1. Next slide, please. So this is the budget. This information can be found in the FOA. I like to just call it out here to make sure everybody's on the same page. Up to $252,000 total cost for phase 1 awards may be requested. Now for STTRs, total cost is your direct cost, your indirect costs, as well as your fee. So that's the one extra part that's included in your total cost for this type of mechanism. For phase 2, up to $1.5 million total costs may be requested. And just for your F&A, phase 1 applicants that do not have a negotiated F&A rate agreement can propose an estimated rate not to exceed 40% of the total direct costs. Additionally, there's an allowable fee not to exceed 7% of your total cost, which would be your direct and indirect for each phase of the project. Additionally, only one award will be made per IDEA region. Next slide, please. So this, I'm sorry, I do apologize, it is a busy slide. This is taken directly from the FOA, your budget considerations. The key points here is that the budget may include salary support for your key personnel, your R&D team, other personnel essential for administering the award. Consultant costs are allowed. Up to 40% may be requested for the pilot project program of the phase 2, and then your other allowable costs here. One note I like to call out in all of these presentations that we give is to make sure that you're including adequate budget justifications in the application to explain why these costs are directly related to the research, to the project that you're proposing. It's very important, you know, put as much information in there as you think will help somebody, you know, from NIGMS reviewing your application to make sure that your budget is reasonable and allowable. Next page, please. So I also like to add this to a lot of the presentations that we give, because there are oftentimes where certain terms are used at various outside organizations that are not allowable per NIH regulations. So honoraria, we see this often in terms of speaker fees, in terms of people giving presentations. Speaker fees are allowable, but honoraria are not when the primary intent is to confer distinction. So if you're going to request, you know, this type of cost, call it speaker fees or include in your justification that it's a speaker fee. Stipends are unallowable on anything other than an NRSA training grant or individual fellowship, but compensation for people involved in the research project are allowed. General supplies are not allowable. You have to make sure that anything you're requesting is directly related to your research project, to the IRED program. So make sure you add budget justifications that explain that. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it for me.
Thanks, Christy. I mean, the last slide, just the scientific, the contact for this program. If you have any scientific question, please direct your question to me. The name of the SRO is here, Dr. Mark Caprara. And if you have any question related to review and before submission of your applications, please contact Dr. Caprara. And as Christy mentioned, all questions related to the budget, details of the budget, what should be included or not included, Christy will be the right person to answer those questions. And with that, I think this was, next slide, please. This was the last slide. Thanks again for participation. And then we are going to read the question that is in the chat box. So to start with, I have received a couple of questions which I posted there. Some of them came directly to me. And I can start the last question. Will this recording will be posted somewhere after its completion? I know slides will be, but I wasn't sure about the recording. The answer is yes. Both recording and the slides will be posted on IRAD program. So I will read the question, and Ming and Christian feel free to assist and help. So the first question is that, do we name steering committee members in the application?
I'll take that one. Yes. You can. The FOA does not prevent you from naming them. But most importantly for us actually is you should articulate your reasoning or rationale and to demonstrate the strengths of your steering committee. If you have concerns about potential steering committee member will be a reviewer, you don't necessarily need to list the entire roster of the steering committee out of the same concern as the external advisory committee. But we do encourage you to list as many as you feel comfortable, so that is helpful for the reviewers to evaluate the strengths of it.
Thank you, Ming. And then just add, because one of the members of the steering committee is the NIH program coordinator, you just can mention the NIH program coordinator. You don't need to mention any name there.
And also, Behrooz, if I could add that, to this answer, that they don't need to contact the other institution, in the network, in the region, if they're naming the people, from the FADA steering committee, they don't need to name, get a letter of support from those individuals, from those institutions.
Yes, good point. Thank you, Krishna. So the next question is, the validation team carries out the education programs, correct?
Okay, let me explain. As Behrooz showed in the presentation, the product development process is divided into three steps: design, testing, and validation. So if you develop a medical device, you're going to test and validate. So here is an educational product. So we try to explain this process. Therefore, you have a prototype to test that. You have to think this through. What are you going to test? How are you going to test? So that is what the intent is. Therefore, there are two steps. The general educational training activities is under the prototype testing. And then when the product gets more mature, we have a validation step. That is, by design, we rely on this pilot project program, so that you have potential future entrepreneurs who are investigators, have ideas of product that are on the verge to be developed further. So they will sort of receive the training and education activities through the grantees to help them to bring the product closer. So that is another type, sort of next step. Therefore, designed for the validation. So you use the term education programs. So there are two steps. They are all necessary steps for the product development. I hope this is helpful.
Thank you, Ming. There is a question here. The next one I'm reading that is, can there be more than one small business concern for application?
I believe so. The FOA does not stipulate you can't actually allowed more than one PIs, but so you can have multi-PIs or even multiple applicant organizations. That said, all applicant organizations have to meet the eligibility criteria. Also, with multiple applicant organizations, the budget allocation, budget structure does not change. So still have to function and operate within the budgetary constraint.
Thank you. This is a question for Christy. Budgetary numbers are hard caps. Please correct, confirm.
Well, they're the caps of the FOA. So yeah, you should definitely stay within those caps to make sure that it's reviewed appropriately.
Thank you, Christy. It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Just to be clear, I mean, next question, just to be clear, the product is the educational program to enhance a small business opportunities in the idea state.
No, that's wrong. The product is the product. Depend on how you define the program, right? So the product, if you read the FOA, there are examples listed. For example, can be, actually it was also on Baruch's slides, different forms of tools, algorithms, and so it's more specific than that.
The next question, does the IDEA TTO, Technology Transfer Office, I think, is that, does the IDEA TTO office own the educational materials if they are incorporated into the budget?
We need to clarify this. There actually isn't an entity called IDEA TTO office. So I need to clarify, what do you mean by IDEA TTO office?
So maybe institutional TTO office. So
you have to let the questionnaire to clarify.
okay, so I mean, maybe, yeah, whoever asked this question, Logan Jones, please clarify the question in the chat box and we'll answer that. The next question is, can you give any examples of the kinds of educational products are desired?
So you can answer that question, Bruce. It's what it was, they were on your slides. It's in
Yeah,
the
actually,
FOA, also on the slides.
Yeah, actually, and you mentioned it just a minute ago about the products that are expected to develop from this IRES program. This could be courses, material, educational that can be included in the curriculum, and there's different formats. Either there are didactic courses, virtual courses, or different formats, casebooks, anything that can be developed, can be considered under this product. These are example of products, and there are more comprehensive lists in the FOA.
Yeah, let me read out that sentence. Actually, it's under the product development in the FOA. It says the product may be in didactic or interactive forms of courses, either in person or virtual or recorded. Could be manuals, casebooks, databases, and or algorithms, etc. They're expected to develop and or enhance academic scientists and entrepreneur knowledge and skills. So that's the actual wording.
Thank you, Ming. The next question is, phase 1 cannot exceed 1 year and phase 2, 2 years. Please correct or confirm.
Krishan.
Krishan?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, yeah, phase 1 is up to 1 year, and then followed by phase 2, which is for 2 years. That's correct.
And as Krishan says, up to 1 year, so you can finish the phase 1 earlier. So if it is shorter, it is okay, but not, it cannot exceed 1 year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can you say a few more words about what is envisioned pre-pilot project program?
Okay.
Ming, you want to answer this question?
Yes. So the pilot project program, first of all, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, is designed to validate the product you develop. In other words, so that you have a real sense if the product is useful or effective. What we envision the pilot project program is that you develop a process and concept to identify and select academic investigators who are interested and have ideas to develop biomedical products. So they are the most likely candidate to be benefit from the product and the education activity using those products. So the program, your award will be used to support their pilot, their work, their actual work. But through the process, they are going to learn through your teaching, using your material what you deem necessary to build their entrepreneur skills and knowledge. So therefore, if you read FOA, there is a sizable award budget, up to 40% can be allocated to the pilot program. And essentially the pilot project program will help you to assemble a cohort of academic investigators who is going to be essentially a practitioner of translating the the research and technology knowledge discoveries into biomedical products.
Thank you, Ming. And actually, the next question is the same, Dana. You answered that because the next question is educational product is to be tested and validated via the pilot project. Please correct and confirm. And you already answered this question.
Yes.
So I'm going back to the question that we had about the TTO office, and the clarification is yes, correct. I meant the institution that received the funding, if it is part of they own the product that is developed. TTO office of the university or institution academic partner.
The grantee is the SBC. Therefore, the SBC, the grantee organization, owns the intellectual property of what you develop. In this case, depend on how your arrangement with your academic institution partner, that partner could end up sharing the intellectual property, but the primary owner is the grantee organization.
Thank you. And the next question is also for Christy. Is there a limit to the financial size of an SBC?
No, the only SBC limit is that it has to be less than 500 employees. There is a very long list of requirements in the FOA for eligibility, but that there is no eligibility on the financial size.
Thank you, Christy. The next question is that wouldn't a small business concern that is focused on education that meets all the criteria other than it is focused on entrepreneurial education be considered for this grant?
No, the SBC can be their expertise. The previous have demonstrated expertise in any areas. So this is an open competition. Even if SBC that's specialized in developing, let's say, either a drug or medical device, does not mean that that organization cannot be competitive if you put in effort in.
Thank you. So any organization with the right expertise is eligible to apply.
And effort, of course, right?
That's the next question. Again, I think is also for Christy. Does the potential PI from the academic institution need to be paid employee of the partnering SBC? Should the contact PI be from the SBC?
So it says, the FOA says for the STTR program, the PDPI may be employed with the SBC or the single partnering nonprofit research institution, as long as he or she has a formal appointment with or commitment to the applicant SBC. So the PDPI does not have to be with the SBC, but there has to be an arrangement there.
Thank you. And for those who enter your question in the chat, if you still need clarification, please enter your follow-up questions. So we are doing our best to answer all your questions. Again, the next question is for Christy. Is marketing communication costs are sometimes sensitive, but necessary to achieve the aims of this RFA. Are they allowable? Similar question, IP cost. Order of magnitude less than patents, but trademarks, proper copyright protection, does bear cost allowable?
So I think you're going to have to send me an individual email with your question with more information, because I can't tell you here and now whether or not that would be allowable. It really depends on what you are proposing and how that fits in. You know, marketing communications is an allowable cost for a grant. It just depends on how it's structured in the grant application. If you send me a more detailed question, I can certainly answer that question.
Thank you, Christy. And the next question is, can the prior gap analysis then be done by the current hubs for each region be found online?
I'll answer this. The gap analysis has been reported in the form of progress report. Therefore, they have not been publicly available online. But we will, I will encourage you, one is to reach out to the current hub PIs, request that, and you can also reach out to reach out to Barus, and we will make an effort to make that document available to any potential applicant.
Thank you. The next question is a single product intended to cover the range of undergraduates to faculty? The metrics for these two groups would be expected to be quite different.
Can be more.
Can be more. So then, yeah. It should be actually tailored for each career level.
Yeah, each level of the stage, of the product development. For faculty and an investigator, it could be different level. Maybe for students, might be a different kind of exposure, training in the entrepreneurship. So it could be different levels of, training.
Just want to make it clear, right? We impose no specific requirement or stipulation one way or another. It is up to you to decide what is optimal and make it compelling.
And next question is that this sounds like it's basically an enhanced or augmented SBIR, STTR that is requiring more educational programming and involvement from academic institutions to ensure a better success rate of the small business concern applicants.
That's kind of his opinion. I don't know if it is really a question.
It seems there is no question. There is a question mark at the end, but the question is, I don't understand exactly the question, but I mean, in general, all the SBIR applications require partnership with academia.
Let's just put it this way. As the FOA described and the presentation showed, it requires the development of a product or products. However, the product or products needs to be educational products to enhance the entrepreneurship. So, you know, with that, I hope that is clear enough. If you have follow-up questions, send us, you know, contact us directly to discuss. I think that is exactly how the program is described and the intent.
Also, if I could add further, you know, that as Behrooz covered, you know, and there is a evaluation plan that's required in the application, and there are various metrics, you know, for the evaluation for the program. And the funding announcement clearly states that, you know, what are the metrics, you know, and so the number of metrics as indicated here, you know, how many investigators are getting training, duration of training, frequency of training in the entrepreneurship. And one of the metrics is also the new application, you know, in the SBR, STTR funding submitted and how many grants awarded. So this could be one of the metrics, you know, but this is not the only metric, you know, for that.
Next question is, can you please name example existing companies that are performing the kind of work and producing the kinds of products that you would like to support with this grant? I mean, I can, first of all, the existing awardees are the example of the SBCs that are doing the same thing. The list is available on the link. Just it is available on NIGMS dashboard. Search for NIGMS dashboard technology transfer hubs. You can find the list of those companies. At least there are 4 of them. And just, I mean, you have to do some search about. You can also search at the NIH e-reporter, which companies have been supported through SBIR, STTR previous awards, focusing on educational programs. If you don't have the NIH reporter web link, I can send it to you and you can search there.
And also, Behrooz, if I could add to that, you know, that all the current 4 regional hubs, they have created the website where they list all the resources, what they have, you know, what they have developed so far and what they are providing the products and services. So we can definitely, you know, share the links of the website, you know, the current hubs that they have created. So they are available.
Okay, thank you. I will receive an email about putting the link to the question mark. I will do it shortly. So are there more questions here? So it seems that we don't have any more question here. Just to re-emphasize about the purpose of the program, focusing on developing educational products with the downstream effects should be like increasing the number of the SBIR application from IDEA regions, provides training for the faculty, academy, and implementing a culture of entrepreneurship in those states. This is another question. Can you please clarify the company location requirement? For example, can be a company registered in Delaware, but with primary place of business in an IDEA state be eligible? I mean, DE is Delaware, correct? If Delaware is correct, the Delaware is part of the IDEA state. But the question is that, can a company be outside IDEA states, I guess, and but with primary place of business in IDEA states? Are they eligible?
Let me take a step on this. The company has to be an IDEA state entity, right? So it probably means it has to be registered in IDEA state. so if you have a, let's say, Massachusetts company with a claim that the major business operation in the nearby New Hampshire, which is an ideal state, it will be very difficult for people, including reviewers, to evaluate the program. So Jake Reader shared interesting information. Most companies are registered with the Division of Corporation in Delaware or its analog in Nevada. I think both of them are idea states. So by the wording the FOA carries, I think they're eligible, but it's up to you to convince the reviewers this is truly an idea state entity with root and connections and commitment to the idea state community.
And one thing is, it may be important to look where your SBC is registered in SAM.gov. What location is your company registered in on SAM.gov? Because we can see that information and we'll look at it.
I think the other question is already being answered. What if you're a Delaware company but have a doing business in the idea state? I mean, Delaware is an idea state, but I guess if the question is if you have a company in other state but doing business in idea state, that I would say no, because there's no objective standard for the reviewers to evaluate that.
A company that, another question that I received through email yesterday was that, what about a company who's providing consulting? Can a company out of the idea states provide consulting for this program?
Yes, they can. They can be consultant, on the program.
Yes, these are STTR funds.
Yes,
Right. Have the same requirements as our idea funds.
Yeah, they can be consultant on an idea or a non-idea state,
Okay, Jake just shared another piece of information using Google as example for that. I would say this at this point, is we don't intend to get into too much of technical matters here, partly because we do not anticipate most of the likely candidate applicant will be large corporate public traded companies like that. We are going to stick with what the FOA language in terms of deciding the eligibility, but in terms of a review outcome, however, as I mentioned, I'm going to repeat that, is up to the applicants to convince the reviewers that this is an idea state entity with connections, relationship, commitment to the idea community.
So it's not a question, I think it's a piece of information. They came actually, most startup companies are registered in Delaware for tax benefits. Yes, it could be problematic. I don't know the question, but it is kind of clarification to follow up what you said. And next question is, are current awardees eligible or given preference?
Current awardees, not all of them are eligible. Only those from idea states are. And for the second point, this is an open competition and everybody has the same opportunity.
They will peer reviewed, and on the meritorious application will be considered for, the next step of funding.
Thank you. This is another question. Can there be more than one academic partner?
No, that is per SBIR STTR rule, it says a single academic partner.
Thank you, Ming. So it seems that I have no more question in the chat box. So if you have any question, please enter your chat box. If
So,
not, okay. Go.
While we are waiting, so I would take a couple minutes to, first of all, thank the current grantees of the HUB program for their great effort in getting this started, laying a good foundation for NIH to continue the effort to build entrepreneurship in Idea State. To this program, as we explained in the FOA and through this seminar, it is an open competition. We encourage everyone who is eligible to apply. Related to the earlier question, whether a given group will be given preference, there will be no built-in advantage. Everybody will be evaluated the same. So again, we will thank you for your interest in applying. And also further clarification is that related to one of the earlier questions is that does a company has to be in this business, meaning developing educational tools, educational materials over the time? The answer to that is no. It can be a company doing, for example, focused on drug development, but over the time, you have the interest, you have experience to share, and those companies are eligible. And as I mentioned earlier, will be considered, their application will be considered equally. So if anyone has further questions after this webinar, Baruch is the program director. You can send questions to him, and we will try our best to answer your questions.
And just another question came. I will answer this question. I think it was in Christy's slide. So the question is how many awards are anticipated? It is one per state. The question is that it is one per region at this time. So we expect to fund 4 awards for regions, considering the budget that we have. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ming, Krishan, Christy.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you.
Yes, of
Thank
course.
you all.
Thank you all. And with that, we are wrapping up the meeting. If you have any question, as Ming said, please send it to me. And the slides will be posted in a couple of days on IRAD Pro webpage. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.